we don't have the kind of information to make a judgment about whether more executions should occur or more restrictions should be put on. I think the executions last night were rushed. They should have been delayed until all the information was out. But each state is operating independently. There's not a national control over this at this point. We don't want that to happen again, and yet we don't know exactly what happened in terms of what caused it. And then the federal review, I think, is, the president pointed to some broader problems like race and innocence, and indicating that the death penalty itself needs to be examined in this era. We've had it, but that doesn't mean we always are going to have it. The problems have expanded. You have the usual problems of unfairness and innocence, and then you have this new problem of states not adequately being able to carry out the executions in a humane way. So I think there's a lot still to be discussed and decided about the death penalty in the U.S. And anytime there's anything that's controversial, the whole issue can get discussed. So people aren't very informed about what's the difference between pentobarbital and some other drug, but they do know that they don't want inmates struggling for life and an execution taking 45 minutes and then the inmate dying, in the back room from a heart attack because the process didn't work. I mean, whatever the facts, they don't want that to be repeated. And they don't want innocent people to be executed. And they don't want, an unfair process, even though they still support the death penalty. So, there's limits to how much the death penalty is supported. It's having a lot of problems that go beyond whether you're for or against the death penalty. Nobody wants these terrible mistakes, and they may not be avoidable. I mean, the reasoning that the states are offering is that if they're not secretive, then the companies that provide the drugs will pull back. They don't want to be exposed and reveal their name shown as providers of drugs for executions. Why so much secrecy? It's true, the death penalty might have problems if these people are revealed, but that's a price that you pay for having an open government and open society. There's a certain amount of responsibility that people take when they get involved in the death penalty. It's not just a minor part of their job. It is their public, and I think that's true of pharmacies that want to provide drugs and doctors who want to participate. These are professional people. Some are good and some aren't. we have to be able to tell they're not just doing a physical thing. They're taking responsibility. They're putting their name on their actions. So I think the secrecy has really gone too far. Ever since countries in Europe and even some in the U.S. said we're not going to provide the drugs, states have been scrambling to find new drugs from new companies, and they don't want to reveal where those are because they think those will be cut off too. But it started in 2010 with a company named Hospira, which is in the U.S.-based company, but it manufactured its drug, sodium thiopental, in Italy. And the first thing they announced was that the supplies were getting short. They may not be able to provide a lot of the drug. And then they said that the workers in the plant in Italy did not want their drug, their product to be used, and so they stopped the drug completely. they said, we're not making this drug anymore. It's not that important or a major drug. There are substitutes. So Hospira stopped it completely. Just sodium thiopental, and they were the only supplier for the U.S. So it's not made, it's not available in the U.S. and no one's using it. And then, states said, well, where else can we get it? And so some states found it manufactured or at least available in England, and I think there was some from India. And well, that was pentobarbital, I think. Yeah, but the first drug still was somewhat available, but then that got stopped. The import of drugs for unapproved purposes was stopped. So now they have to either find a new drug, which pentobarbital is used in the U.S., was available in the U.S. They weren't going to get it from overseas, but the manufacturer was in Denmark, Lundbeck, and they said no. So that got cut off. And so it's evolved that states are using something called compounding pharmacies. But they're not saying which compounding pharmacy. They're not saying what state it's in, or who is in charge, or what's their medical or pharmaceutical degree. So there's still a lot of secrecy, but that's where things have come to, or trying new drugs that are still available in the marketplace. So I don't think any electrocutions are going to occur, but that's a sign that, I think a sign to the courts and the manufacturers and, that the states want the drugs and they want to keep them secret, and they want not much interference, control. Otherwise, they'll go to the electric chair, which nobody wants. But it is a good strategy in a way. It tries to say, we'll go backwards. Do you want us to go backwards in technology? And no. Well, then don't regulate the drugs. Don't make us reveal the names. Don't, watch these too closely, because that's what will happen. Well, it's only a few states. Only 6 states have carried out an execution this year, and it probably won't be. It might be 6 or 7, but it's not going to be 10, or it's a very small group of states carry out executions each year, mostly in the South, and that isolation means that this is not an American practice. Yes, we're one country, but it definitely is really isolated in a small area, a few states. It's not, most states have no executions in a year or 2 years. They have even no death sentences. So the death penalty is slowly becoming a rare and isolated phenomena that probably is not going to survive forever.